I'm Chris.
Hi, I'm Ritchie.
And welcome to the Serviced Accommodation Podcast. So today we're going to be talking about complaints, and that's not complaints in the podcast, is it?
Definitely not, no.
No.
Never had any of those.
Never.
Stays that way, yeah.
No, complaints within your serviced accommodation business, because it's a complex business with many moving parts, much of which you don't necessarily have control over. So however great your serviced accommodation business is, you are going to get complaints. And there's a few reasons why complaints are very important to your business, isn't there, Richie?
Yeah, most certainly. So complaints will be highlighting people's bad experiences, and bad experiences lead to bad reviews, which has significant impact on your business. Or negative impact on your business, should I say?
Yeah, because prospective guests, one of the main things they look at is reviews.
It's reviews, yeah. In this day and age, that's what people do. All they do is look at reviews before booking.
Definitely. And also, if they've had a bad experience, they don't feel like it's been dealt with, they're much more likely to go and tell other people, talk about it, maybe even on social media. So that kind of word of mouth effect, while it can be fantastic when people have good experiences, equally,
negative experiences,
it can have a very big impact on negative experiences as well, can't it?
Yeah, that's it. The thing is, with the bad reviews, with the bad experiences, when customers give you give you feedback, like private feedback, bad feedback, that's actually an opportunity to improve your services and improve the level of service that you provide into the customer, or the end user, should I say.
And it's very important, although often we'll feel like a guest being unreasonable and they might be acting in a way which isn't really great. But I think you've got to be mature enough to kind of overcome that and really listen to what they're saying and the feedback they're giving your business, regardless of how they're framing it or how unreasonable they might be.
It's actually an opportunity. Use it as an opportunity to improve your business. And that's just a positive. You can't take that negatively at all.
Definitely. So we'll certainly get into exploring that shortly. So shall we start off by having a little think about how we should actually be dealing with complaints within the business? You know, when things go wrong, when guests aren't happy, how should we be dealing with that?
The most important is who should be dealing with that to start off with. You don't want it to be the person who does the day-to-day communication with the guest. So anyone who does the guest communication, who takes the booking in, who makes the booking, who sends them the booking confirmation and all that stuff, you don't want them to be dealing with the review straight away.
Well, they could potentially be part of the complaint.
Exactly. Yes. So people can't be fully honest or transparent with them. They'll need someone a level higher. You know, someone who's fresh, coming outside from the outside in, and who's overseeing the whole process to kind of like take over.
Yeah, and having that separate perspective is also very useful as well, because someone else can step into the situation and immediately be on their side.
Oh yes, they need to side with the guest.
Involved as it goes along, you know.
Yes, it's always important being on their side. So I understand, I fully appreciate and understand that, and when, not to sound condescending or patronizing, but then the person has to have authority over the business. So if the person's got authority, or if they're like a level higher than the guest communications person, then that is very important, because the guest feels very important, as in you taking care of their complaints. It's someone senior, someone important looking after them.
And it's showing that you're taking it seriously.
Yes,
And that's really critical, isn't it? You know, a lot of the time the reason that a complaint leads to a bad review is because guests don't feel like they've been heard, and they don't feel like you care that they've had a bad experience, and that leads to frustration, which then often leads to a bad review. If you can actually deal with it at source and show them that you are listening, you do care, and that you wanna make improvements so that future guests don't have to go through the same thing.
Exactly. You'd be surprised how much of an impact that has, where someone fresh steps in and they've got authority. We used to have it in our previous business, where we'll be sat in the same office, Chris, and then if you had a complaint with someone, you just say, oh no, I'll pass you over to my manager. Likewise, if I had a complaint with someone, I'll say, oh sorry, please hold on, I'll pass you over to my manager who can deal with this. And passing it over to someone else who's fresh, the person will automatically calm down. They feel like, oh, hold on a sec, these people value me, they value what I've got to say, and they're passing me on to a manager who's going to be looking after this. So yes, it changes the whole dynamics completely.
So obviously one key thing which you can do within your business is try to reduce complaints as much as possible.
Yes,
Yeah. And I think one of the best ways we found is to actually empower your staff to resolve issues. So let them know that you want guests to be happy every time, and if there's little things that they can actually do themselves to resolve issues, to make guests happy, then they should be going out of their way to do it.
Before things get escalated, yes, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So if a guest isn't happy about the fact that something is missing from the apartment, then get someone out there to replace it or put it in there or that type of thing.
Yes, and then offer something else like as an apology as well, like a bottle of wine. That works really well.
Yeah. We tend to buy quite a lot of wine in the business because it's not going into our personal supply, honestly. But
That's
because
what Chris
it's a
says.
nice little touch. If there's something that you could have done better that you've then resolved, then let's say the guest couldn't find the hairdryer and it turns out it had disappeared and it was missed by the latest audit, then getting a hairdryer over there with a bottle of wine doesn't cost a fortune, but it also kind of heads it off before it becomes a major issue. Really,
yeah, so you touched on something important over there, as in, buying something extra as an apologetic gift. So do people have free reign, or could you please elaborate on that? Do people have free reign to spend as much as they want to spend on those things, our staff, by empowering them?
I think, for us, kind of a wine, beer, that kind of thing is a great way of trying to resolve the issue at the time. I think what can then happen is, obviously, not having a hairdryer in an apartment is a relatively minor issue, but for something more major, let's say that there was an issue with cleaning, something was missed, and, let's say there were kind of dirty pans in there, or maybe the bed linen, which was on the beds, wasn't particularly clean, then people might take that more seriously and it might not be kind of addressed at that point. They might still not be happy with the situation. And I think, again, at that point, that's something which you can empower your employees with, and something which we've done very successfully is to say to our guest comm staff that you're allowed, if a guest isn't happy, and they're asking maybe for a refund, something like that, then you are allowed to refund them up to £30 just off your own bat without asking permission from anyone. And crucially, you should share that with the guest. Because if a guest is asking, say, for 1 night free from their stay, then our staff can actually say to them, look, I'd love to help you with that, but unfortunately, I'm only authorised to actually refund you up to £30. So look, I'd be happy to do that straight away, but otherwise you're going to have to go through our official complaints procedure.
Yes, that's the escalation process. And regarding the complaints procedure, it's not meant to be a straightforward and easy procedure, is it? Because it has to be looked into in detail and a lot has to go into it as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think with this there can be a very big difference between the perception and the reality. The reality is that we want complaints resolved as quickly as possible,
as soon as possible,
so we're going to deal with them quickly and straightforward. However, you can also, push people towards that £30 refund by making it appear more difficult than it is. So, they have to go onto the website and fill in the forms and submit them. And then they'll get a decision within 14 days, etc., etc. It's all things which are designed to make it unappealing to the guest. Now, the reality is you're probably going to deal with that complaint within a couple of days because you don't really want that hanging over you. But again, that's not the objective here. The objective here is to get them to say, okay, well, £30, that's a nice meal out. That at least it shows that they care about it, and I'll take that.
Yeah, and speaking of the complaints process, if we're going into detail how our complaints process works, so we have like you touched on just now, we have a complaints form that the person fills in, and it's not a small form, it is a long form, because you need all the detail of the complaint as and when it happened, and the whole story, what happened, why they're unhappy, so it is a long form because it has a lot of detail to be filled in there. Then the responsible person reviews the complaint, looks into it, and then responds, and we're talking about an immediate response. We work on, as soon as we receive the completed complaints form, we review the form, like I said, respond, and then we call the guest straight away. Apologize, take ownership of what they're talking about, not responsibility, but ownership that you're dealing with it and you're looking after them, and then ask them personally on their view on what's happened. Find out exactly what's happened from their point of view, take their side. So yes, I fully understand, I appreciate that is unreasonable. Yes, and agree with them, take their side.
Yeah, you can say, no, as a director of the business, I'm not happy about this either.
That's it, yes, Exactly. And that's taking ownership of the problem and ownership of the issue. And then ask them, because sometimes regarding outcomes, you don't know what someone wants from this, and you can over-deliver or you can under-deliver based you might have a solution to the problem, but then the guest might think, hold on a sec, that's definitely unreasonable. Or you might be wanting to give them a solution, and then it's an over delivery of what's happened, which would be good for the guest, but it might might have a significant impact financially on your business. So ask what outcome they would like to see. Ask them personally what they would want to see from this, what they want to get from this.
Because at the end of the day, you're trying to leave them happy, and
yes,
how
you
know how to leave them happy unless you directly ask them, what would you like us to do about this?
Yes, yeah.
It might be a night refund, that they're asking for. It might not be reasonable, but that might be what they're asking for. Or they might say, look, I just want you guys to understand what happened. And
so you can improve, happen for someone else, to someone else,
that's fine. For a lot of people who are quite reasonable, then they'd go, look, that's absolutely fine. Yeah. As long as you guys realise what happened here.
Yeah, and you make the necessary steps to improve it so it doesn't happen to anyone else. Yeah, and then you take this on board and you investigate this internally. Find out from your staff, because you trust your staff. These are people you work with. You don't want to just put the buck and the blame on them. You want to find out from them personally what happened, what their view of what happened is, and investigate it internally.
Because there's always two sides to every story, isn't there?
Yeah, sometimes three.
I think with complaints, obviously, it's great to kind of understand the guest's perspective first of all. But then to understand from an operational point of view, the members of staff they dealt with, or the operational issues which might run into, what happened from other people's perspective, maybe why stuff happened, which the guest might not be able to see.
Yes, yeah. Definitely. And then contact the guests to let them know what the decision is or what the resolution you've come up with is, and that's influenced heavily, but by what outcome they're told they wanted to see from this.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of the time, a guest might just want to understand how something happened. It's like, well, how on earth did this happen? You can explain, well, there was a mix-up at the suppliers and the wrong linen came in, X, Y, Z kind of thing. And a lot of the time, that's really helpful.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and how do we deal with within our company, Chris? How do we deal with unresolved complaints, so to speak?
Well, it's a bit of a tricky one, really, isn't it? Because you've got a complaints procedure which people go through, and hopefully you've looked at the situation from both sides and been relatively fair in how you've assessed it. So I know in some industries you can kind of have tribunal type systems which people can go to, but typically the cost on those can be quite high. And I think the real issue here is that if a guest still isn't happy with the outcome of the complaint, then there's always the risk of a chargeback.
Yes. And it's not usually just a chargeback of anything you've charged. Well, it's usually charged back off the whole amount, not just for the one night they're not happy or something. They usually charge back for the whole amount, Yeah,
and that can put you in a situation. So, it is hard to deal with unresolved guest complaints. I think to some degree you have to use your judgment in terms of if they're really pushing hard for something, whether you feel like you should actually give it to them anyway, whether you think it's reasonable or not. But ultimately, if you feel like you've been fair, then at some point you might need to kind of stick to your guns and say, well, look, we feel that this is fair and proportional compared to what the situation is.
Yeah.
So we've talked about just why complaints are important. Obviously, you want to avoid those bad reviews. And of course, as we've said, it's real important feedback in your business.
Yes, it's a fantastic opportunity. Take it as an opportunity to improve your business and to improve the guest experience.
Definitely.
Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast to hear the latest on serviced accommodation.